Hello YouTube, this is Umozo3. In the previous couple of videos, we've been talking about regular expressions, and we've said that there are basically techniques for determining whether or not there's a particular pattern within a particular string. And we've already seen a couple of examples about that, but I wanted to devote one more video to regular expressions and meta-characters, and in this particular video, I wanted to talk about something called groups and special sequences. So we're going to be saying a little bit more about this sort of pattern and string, matching paradigms, but then we're going to go on to a couple more new concepts in the last two videos after this one. Remember that we'll need to go ahead, and import the re module. So import re should be at the top of your program. And then remember, if you go ahead and say print of x comma y, or you go ahead and feed multiple arguments into the print function, one of the things we said in the previous video is that you can print multiple things to the console, right? So then if we go ahead and run main.py, here you can see sup92, the tuple, how are you? And you can actually see that there's spaces in between the words, okay? So this is slightly different from plus because we get spaces with print of xy. Okay, so essentially if you use print and you have multiple arguments, then there will be an implied space between the arguments. And that's kind of nice because it's a little bit cleaner and then you don't have to remember to manually do that on your own. We said also that, so then we're going to talk about regular expressions, right? So again, we're going to have a pattern and a word to check. And we say if we have re.match with pattern and word to check, it'll check to see whether word to check begins with pattern. If you say re.search of pattern word to check, it'll see whether word to check somewhere contains pattern, right? And then re.findall of pattern and word to check will return all the occurrences of the pattern in the word to check. And then we also talked about group and start and end and span. And then I think we also talked about meta characters a little bit in the previous video. So let's just jump into all of that. I wanted to remind you of two functions that we wrote. We have isMatch and isSearch, and isMatch will return true. If there's a match at the beginning of the string, isSearch will return true if there's a match somewhere in the string. So hopefully this sort of architecture is clear to you because we're going to be using these two functions a lot in our examples in this video. So again, I think we already saw this example. I can go ahead and maybe I should have commented out this line before recording this video. But again, if you have a pattern and word to check, and then you say, isMatch and isSearch of pattern and word to check, hopefully you can go ahead and predict that one of these will be false and the other of them will be true. So hopefully that's clear to you why. And then again, if we have our list of do's, right? So then you have 3 occurrences of do, and how many do's do you do in this string? So that's why you might have seen a list with 3 occurrences of do. So hopefully that's clear to you. And then we can also talk about 4 more functions. So group, start, end, and span. So if you remember from lesson 41, I think, remember if you have an object, if you say re.search of pattern and word to check, and you can save that into a variable if you want, or you can just call .group on that entire thing. But what it'll return is the string that was matched, okay? And then if there was no match, then it'll return a runtime error, okay? The start and the end functions will give you the index positions at the beginning and immediately after the end, respectively, of the first occurrence of the pattern in the word to check. So we'll see an example of that. And then remember, the span will give you a tuple with 2 numbers in it, where the first number is the result of the start function. So it's the index position where the pattern was first found in the string. And then the second number in that tuple will be the index position immediately after the end of the first occurrence of the pattern in the word to check. So hopefully that's clear to you, and we're going to go ahead and see some examples now. Okay, so then what we could do is, so you already saw that. So then if we can go ahead, re.search of our app and find my application, if you say just .group, that'll return the string that was matched, the entire string that was matched. And then if you say dog with my dog, remember that'll return 3, because if you do 0, 1, 2, 3, you can see dog starts at index position 3. It would still return 3, even if you said my dog, right? Because you're going to get the index position of the first occurrence. What if you said re.search of st and coasts? Well, here it's going to give you the index position of the s immediately after st, because we said that's the result of the end function. So hopefully that's clear to you. And then you could also have the span function, right? And so if you have top and stopping, well, what would the result of the start function be? That would be 1, because that's the position of this t. And then what's the result of the end function? Well, that would be 4, because that's the position of this p, but it's the second p, right? Not the first p in top. the P after top, right? So ping. So hopefully that's clear to you. So we can go ahead and run those three things, and hopefully you've already made your predictions about what these would return. So you have 3, 5, and then 1 and 4. So hopefully that's clear to you. And then we said also re.sub of R, of A, B, and C will return the substring C with all occurrences of pattern A replaced with string B. So if you say old string is Boston is so cool and Boston is great summers, new string is re.sub of our Boston. This is our pattern that we're looking for. This is our string that we're going to replace with, and then this is the overall string that we're looking in. And then if we go ahead and run it, we'll say Phoenix is so cool and Phoenix has great summer. So hopefully that's clear to you. And then we also said that there's basically a dot that will match any character except a new line, right? So if you were looking for C something something P at the beginning of he craps, basically you would say false for this one, right? Because is match, he craps doesn't start with C dot dot P, but it has it within it, right? So then if you go ahead and switch it to is search of C dot dot P within that string, then you'll get true. So hopefully that's clear to you. And so these dots here just match any character at all. Okay, so hopefully that's clear to you. And maybe I sort of beat a dead horse here. I have a lot of examples, but hopefully you can go ahead and predict that these two would also be false, right? Because corpse does not contain corpse and then another letter, right? And then pay the tax does not start with 2 letters and then an X. So hopefully that's clear to you. So then if we go ahead and run it, you need to be careful and know what the difference between is search and is matched for is matches, right? And be able to look for patterns accordingly. So hopefully that's clear to you. And just so that we're not printing too many things to the console, I'm just going to go ahead and comment out some of the lines that we wrote that we uncommented. Okay, so we can go ahead and look at some new content, right? So hopefully you're clear with all those things. And then we also said that the up arrow will match the beginning of a string, and the $sign will match the end of a string, right? So let's go ahead and see an example of that. So then if we go ahead and scroll to right here, right? So then if we could go ahead and look at, I'm just trying to find my examples. So maybe these, right? So then, we would say, is search of up arrow ion within application would be, this would actually be false, right? Or this would be false, right? Because I guess I switched my example up between the previous video and the current video, but that should be false, right? So false, true, false are the last 3 things printed to the console, because application does not begin with ion. Applications starts with, how many dots is that? Like 8 letters, right? And then ion, so hopefully that's clear to you. And then you would also have false for this last one, because application does not start with ion. I guess that's the same example that we already had, right? So then if we change this to app, then we will go ahead and get true for the last thing printed, right? So we would say true because application does begin with app. Okay, so hopefully that's clear to you. And then we can also talk about character classes, right? So character classes are basically, they contain ranges of characters, okay? So essentially, if you have these square brackets, what this kind of a pattern will match is anything lexicographically that falls between A and E. And so basically that would be matching a capital A, a capital B, a capital C, a capital D, or a capital E, okay? Lowercase letters are not contained in that range. So basically the way characters work lexicographically is, remember when we were talking about Booleans, we were talking about dictionaries and the idea that you could compare one letter to another letter, and it just depends on where it exists in the dictionary. But basically the capital letters will come first, and then you'll have all the lowercase letters from A to Z, and then you'll have the digits from 0 to 9. But anyway, what this pattern will match is anything, if you have somewhere in the word to check where you have something between a capital A and a capital E, and then immediately something between a capital W and a lowercase b, okay? And then immediately a digit, a number between a 3 and an 8. So hopefully that's clear to you. So for example, re.search of A, B, and C, and then X, Y, and Z, that'll match if there's an A, B, or C followed by an X, Y, or Z somewhere in the string. So hopefully that's clear to you, and we could go ahead and see a couple of examples of that. So then if you have print is search of 0 to 9, 0 to 9, 0 to 9, Jeffrey 646, this is true because the string somewhere contains 3 digits, okay? But then if you demand that the string that the string have another consecutive digit, then that's not going to work out. Even if you had another string of 3 digits right here, right? Since you don't have 4 consecutive digits, this will be false. So hopefully that's clear to you. We can also invert character classes. So essentially what we've been thinking about, so we can go see one more example. So what if you have lowercase e and then a capital A, and you're looking to see if somewhere in lowercase e, capital A, just within that tiny string, there is a sequence where the first letter is between a capital B and a lowercase e, and the second letter is between a capital E and a lowercase b. Well, the first character, satisfies that, right? Because the lowercase e is within that range. So basically the endpoints are included, okay? But the capital A is not between capital E and lowercase b. The capital A is before capital E. So that should be false because there's not a match. So hopefully that's clear. And then we can also invert character classes. So basically, if you have basically a character class or you have a range, basically you have a set of characters like 0 to 9, or W to Z. And basically, if you want to match anything that's not in that range, then you can go ahead and put this up arrow within the character class. So I think I have a little comment about that up here. But essentially, if you go ahead and have an up arrow within a character class, so within one of these sets of square brackets that holds a range of characters, like W to Z or 2 to 7, basically the up arrow will invert it, okay? So basically what this word to check for basically is we're looking to make sure that somewhere in the word to check, there are 3 consecutive characters that are not digits, okay? It's okay if you have 3 consecutive digits, but you also need to have 3 consecutive digits, 3 consecutive characters that are not digits. So hopefully that's clear to you. But we could go ahead and see a couple of examples, right? If you say print is search of R, right? And then up not 9, not 1, not 1, and then do not call 911, this will be true, right? Because you can see a lot of occurrences where there are 3 characters that are not consecutive 911s. Okay, so hopefully that's clear to you. So that would be true, as we'll see as the last thing printed to the console. What about this one? What if you said cups with a capital C, right? But then you have basically anything that's not a capital letter, and then any letter at all, and then anything that's not a capital letter. Well, then think about ups, right? So lowercase u, lowercase p, lowercase s satisfies that. But if you have the same regular expression that you're looking for and you take out the lowercase s, then you're just dealing with cup with a capital C. But nowhere in this short string do we satisfy this regular expression. We only do that with cups once we get that lowercase s. So hopefully all of this is clear to you, so you can see false for this one, but true for this one. So hopefully that's clear to you. But since we're getting a lot of trues and falses, I'm just going to go ahead and comment out some of these things. And then we have another 7 or so minutes to talk about new content, right? So, so then what we can also do is we can also talk about how many things are left. So we can talk about the number of repetitions. Okay, so we'll probably have to talk about special sequences in the next video, but number of repetitions. Okay, so basically, if you have something in parentheses, basically that will represent a sequence of characters. Okay, so we can talk about groups here essentially. So groups will surround part of a regular expression with parentheses, and that feeds it as an argument to metacharacters. And what metacharacters are, for example, if you have a plus sign here, basically that will match one or more repetitions of K in the word to check. Okay, so for example, if you have re.search of R, and then you have basically this parentheses, you can see parentheses here. This is called a grouping, okay? And basically it's one unit. It's basically clumps multiple characters potentially into one argument. It's basically one unit that's being treated, within a regular expression. And so what is that one unit? Well, basically it's going to be a capital letter and then a lowercase letter, okay? And so basically it's going to clump that together, and it's going to basically return true. It's going to match if somewhere in this word to check, there is at least one repetition of a capital letter and then immediately a lowercase letter. So hopefully that's clear to you. And then that would just be one or more repetitions, at least one, okay? And then also if you go ahead and have basically, if you have a regular expression E, okay, so this is some kind of pattern or something that you're looking for. And then you basically have curly braces, okay? So this is sort of like set notation, but you have curly braces, and then you have 2 numbers. You have 2 arguments in between those curly braces. What you can do is you can specify 2 integers to put in those curly braces. And basically that would be a regular expression that would match if there were between A and B occurrences or repetitions of the regular expression E in the word to check. So let's go ahead and see a ton of examples of that, just so that this can get a little bit clearer. So basically, if you say print is search of S, right? It's just the letter S. But then you go ahead and have this plus sign here. As long as there's at least one repetition of the letter S in this string, then that'll be true. And that's why that's the last thing that you see printed on the console. There's no more print statements. It's just all comments or a variable assignment here. So basically that's the last thing you see on the console, right? So that would be true, right? But then if you go ahead and say, you know, pair, right? You just to go ahead and take out all the S's, then obviously that would return false, right? So then that would be false. And then what if you wanted to go ahead and say re.findall of the word set as long as there's 1 to 9 repetitions of it. And so basically this will return all occurrences in the string bounded set where there are between 1 and 9 repetitions of the word set. So hopefully that makes sense to you, but that only occurs one time, right? What if you had said bounded set set? So now, you know, 2 is between 1 and 9, so that'll still be an occurrence that gets matched. But since this is the regular expression that you're looking at, since you're just looking for repetitions of set, that's why there's only one, that's why that's the string that you see here. What if you had said set, 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 bounded, set, set? Okay, so now if you go ahead and run this one, now you can see that there's 2 times where there are between 1 and 9 occurrences of set in this string. So hopefully you can sort of get a little bit clearer on this, okay? What if you had said sets here? What if you were looking for 1 to 9 occurrences of sets, right? So then you can go ahead and see an occurrence here at the beginning, and then you can see another one right here, you know, sort of near the beginning, and then you can probably see one more right here, right? So then here, you're still getting between 1 and 9 repetitions of sets on either side of the word bounded, and that's why you get sets and then sets. So hopefully that's clear to you. And then how much time do we have? So I just have to look at my calendar or look at my clock here. Okay, so then, okay, the last thing we can say a little bit more about groups here. So basically, in regard to groups, we're surrounding part of a regular expression with parentheses. Okay, so you have ape in parentheses, then basically you'd be looking for occurrences of ape. You'd be looking to see if ape occurs in a string. Okay, so hopefully that's clear to you. You're treating a sequence of characters as though it were one unit in a regular expression. We've already talked a little bit about groups. So if you have x equals re.match of pattern and word to check, okay, where pattern contains multiple groups in parentheses, okay, basically if you have x.group, that will return the entire string or pattern that was matched. And basically you can have groups within other groups. So you can have parentheses within other parentheses. So let me show you some examples of what I mean by all of this. So essentially what we have here is a group pattern, and you can see there's a lot of clumped parentheses and there's a lot of groups within other groups, right? You see parentheses that enclose this B and C, but then there's also parentheses specifically around the C, okay? And then you see another group here. So if you had to count the number of groups, really there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 groups, I think. And so you just have to count all of them and you have to be familiar with the groupings here. So HI is a group, right? Right, so there's one group which contains the group H and the letter I, right? And then there's another group which just contains the letter H. So hopefully you can make that distinction. But the string that we're going to be looking at is just the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, E, all the way down to Z, right? And so you can see that there are clumped groups here, but you can just see it's the letters A through M with different, associations of parentheses. So then what we can do is we can go ahead and say print of p.group, and basically that gives you A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, because that gives you the entire string, gives the entire string or pattern that was matched. Okay, so hopefully that's clear to you. If you say print of p.group of 0, the same thing. So you're going to get the exact same thing. So p.group and p.group of 0 return the same thing. They give this entire string or pattern that was matched. If you say print p.group of 1, that will basically give you the group that was matched starting from the left. So you can see the first group from the left is the BC group. Okay, so that's the first group that would be returns there. What if you said p.group of 2? So that would give you the C, right? Because we can't just go immediately on to the D, E, F, G. You have to see that C itself is within a group, and that's the next group that would be counted. What if you said print p.group of 4? So now we're skipping D, E, F, G and going over to H, I. So hopefully that's clear to you. And then finally, if you say print p.groups, this will return a tuple with all of the groups that were matched except for the entire pattern. So it'll start at the beginning of the string and it'll try to, check for all the groups that were found within this string. And so you can see those occurrences there. So we'll have to continue regular expressions again in the next video, but hopefully that was interesting. From Email Sub 3, thanks for watching, and please subscribe.